everyone, hope you guys are all having a great day. Today I'm going to do the first video in a series of 3 videos about Christmas themed books. Now most of these books are not about Christmas at all, but they remind me of different Christmas themes. Those themes are peace, love, and grace. So today my video is books that make me think of peace. I am going to start with a book that I don't actually have in my personal possession and is actually a recommendation from my husband. It is called Old Christmas by Washington Irving, and it's a short little story about this narrator who is a guest on an English estate during Christmas time, and it starts as he's coming to this estate and he's riding the stagecoach with a bunch of boys who are coming home from school, and they're just overjoyed to be back at home and enjoying this Christmas season. And then it takes the narrator takes you through the rest of the Christmas festivities on this old English estate, and it's charming and it's funny and it's just full of joy and peace. And this book actually makes me think of peace for a different reason than it makes my husband think of peace. This story makes me think of peace because the only time I've ever experienced it is when David was reading it to me. And I don't normally enjoy being read to because it puts me straight to sleep, but I like when we share those Christmas experiences together. It's a story that he really, really loves, and he's read it to me twice, I think, and around the Christmas season, and it means a lot to me and makes me think of peace for that reason. The second book that I'm going to share with you is probably not a huge surprise, but that would be Lord of the Rings. Specifically the Fellowship of the Ring, because so much of it takes place in the Shire. To me, the Shire is a place of peace, and it's why Frodo goes out on his adventure to begin with. He is doing something because he's doing this thing because he wants to save that peace. He doesn't want his beautiful, peaceful home to be overtaken by evil, and that's what would happen if, the Dark Lord gets a hold of the ring. So Frodo is going on his journey to attempt to destroy it, and he does it all to protect the peace of the Shire. And I think that the peace of the Shire comes back to him on several occasions, and then not in this book, but in the next book when they are in Galadriel's home. I think that's a very peaceful experience for them too. And just those two places sink in and fill me with peace when I read them, and I think that's what the author had in mind. The third story I'm going to share that I think has peaceful themes is Little Women. The characters in this book are going through a pretty difficult time. Their father is away in the Civil War. They're struggling for that reason. Plus, they're just growing up in general, and they are dealing with small and large elements that bring them trouble. And throughout this story, the characters constantly come back to this peace. They are constantly reminded of the good things that they do have in their lives and the things that they can celebrate and focus on and be thankful for, which is, I think, where we get a lot of our peace. And so even though some sad, heartbreaking things happen in this story, the characters and the overarching theme in it is peace and serenity. And I didn't ever think that I would enjoy this story, but it's actually one of my favorites. The fourth story I'm going to share with you is The Deer Slayer by James Fenimore Cooper. This is one of the stories in the Leatherstocking Tales. So he wrote this story last, but it's actually chronologically the first story of Natty Bumppo, which is a ridiculous, stupid name, but we're just going to accept that, okay? And we are first introduced to him. He's a young man. He is adventuring in the woods of upstate New York, and the setting is just amazing in this story. It is quiet and peaceful. It takes place, the opening scene of the book is he's just walking through these quiet woods and he can hear everything that's happening, and then it opens up onto a lake, and it's gorgeous and peaceful, and it's artfully done. And the whole book takes place on this lake. And so there's action in the story, action that isn't peaceful. There's kidnappings and all sorts of things, Indian nappings and soldiers who are really not peaceful. But while it's entertaining and action-packed, there's that element of peace woven through it because of the setting. And I just loved it. It's a really, really beautiful book. And the final book on this list that I'm going to share with you is one that I definitely did not think I was going to enjoy. This week I finished Perelandra by C.S. Lewis, and while I was reading it, I was overwhelmed with a sense of peace. C.S. Lewis sets the stage perfectly for the story that he tells through this. This is a story of the main character named Ransom, who purposefully this time travels to another planet. He travels to the planet that we call Venus, although in reality, in the story, it is called Perelandra. And this is basically a second Eden. And C.S. Lewis just masterfully connects to that story of peace in the garden. The whole planet is innocent. The whole planet has only ever known the peace of God. And he doesn't call it God, he calls it something else. But it's just so beautiful. And then when Ransom arrives and he starts talking to the inhabitants and dealing with the inhabitants, you can see so clearly the difference between his thoughts and actions and the actions of this perfect, peaceful land. And it's just really gorgeous to me. There's this one scene towards the beginning where Ransom asks basically the Eve character, "But are you at peace?" And she says back to him, "What is peace?" She doesn't know what peace is because she's never not experienced it. She doesn't have anything to compare it to. And that to me was just a beautiful depiction of it. And throughout it, there are characters who come and try and steal that peace away from them, and Ransom has to deal with that. So it was actually a really amazing story. I definitely think I liked it better than Out of the Silent Planet, and I will go on to the third book in the series, That Hideous Strength, next year probably. It was definitely better than I thought it was going to be. So I was very excited to share that with you because as I was reading it and preparing for this video, I wasn't expecting to add that to the list. I was expecting to find this book incredibly boring, and I was wrong. So pleased, and it fit perfectly in with what I wanted to talk to you guys about, which is peace. I think these stories are really beautiful and they resonate with me and make me think of peace, but it's really interesting that the things that make me think of peace might be different than the things that make you think of peace. You know, for me, that's being in the mountains in a quiet place where I can be in tune with nature, but not everybody is that way. And so I'd be very curious to see what you associate with peace. And then also, you know, I think it's really important to ask ourselves why we seek it. Why are we drawn to stories and settings and places that give us that feeling of peace? And the reason that we're drawn to it, I think, is because innately in our souls and our hearts, we don't have it. We lack that peace on our own. And during the Christmas season, the frivolity of the Christmas season really seems to highlight the absence of real peace in our hearts. You know, even Christmas music can grate on your nerves when you're not feeling that peace. And it can really draw attention to the fact that for some reason or other we don't have it. And that is heartbreaking because the point of this season is to celebrate the bringer of peace. And it brings my mind to that short little part of Luke 2 where the angels are standing in front of the shepherds and the shepherds are terrified and they fall before the angels, and the angels break out in song and they say, "Glory to God in the highest, peace on earth, goodwill to men." And that's not something that I think modern we think of when we think of Christianity, but it was the purpose of Jesus. We do not have peace in our world. We do not have peace in our hearts. And Jesus came to bring that peace. And so that is why I think of peace when I think of the Christmas season. Definitely share some of those stories that remind you of peace, and I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.